Is the 1964 Jefferson nickel made of silver? This is one of the most common questions in U.S. coin collecting, and the answer surprises a lot of people. Many collectors and non collectors alike assume that any U.S. coin dated 1964 or earlier must contain silver, but that rule does not apply to nickels. In this video, we're going to clear up the confusion, explain what the 1964 Jefferson nickel is actually made of, why people think it's silver, and when a 1964 nickel can still be worth more than face value. To understand the confusion, you have to look at what happened in 1964. That year marked the end of silver coinage for most U.S. coins. Dimes, quarters, and half dollars were traditionally made of 90% silver, but rising silver prices forced the U.S. Mint to change their composition. Starting in 1965, those coins were made without silver. Because of this, many people learned a simple rule. Coins dated 1964 or earlier are silver. However, this rule was never true for nickels. Jefferson nickels have almost always been made of a copper and nickel alloy. A standard Jefferson nickel, including the 1964 issue, is composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel. There is no silver in a regular 1964 Jefferson nickel at all. This composition gives the coin its distinctive gray color, which often leads people to believe it contains silver, especially when the coin is older or worn. The belief that the 1964 nickel is silver became even stronger because of what happened during the mid-1960s. When the U.S. Mint announced that silver would be removed from dimes and quarters, the public began hoarding coins. People saved massive quantities of all coins dated 1964 and earlier, including nickels, even though nickels were not changing composition. As a result, 1964 nickels were produced in extremely large numbers to meet demand. In fact, 1964 Jefferson nickels are some of the most heavily minted nickels in U.S. history. Hundreds of millions were struck across the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Because so many were made and saved, they are still very common today. This is another reason why most 1964 nickels are only worth face value despite their age. There is one major exception that often adds to the confusion: wartime nickels. Between 1942 and 1945, the U.S. Mint produced special Jefferson nickels that did contain silver. These are known as Silver War nickels, and they are made of 35% silver. However, these coins are clearly marked with a large mint mark above Monticello on the reverse. A 1964 nickel does not have this feature and is not a wartime issue. Another simple way to tell whether a nickel contains silver is by using a magnet. Regular Jefferson nickels, including those from 1964, are not magnetic. This sometimes misleads people because silver is also not magnetic. However, the lack of magnetism does not mean the coin contains silver. It simply means the coin is made of non-magnetic metals, which includes copper and nickel. Weight can also be used to identify a 1964 Jefferson nickel. A standard nickel weighs 5 grams. This is consistent across most Jefferson nickels from this period. A Silver War nickel weighs slightly less due to its different metal composition. While the difference is small, a precise scale can help distinguish between the two if the date and mint mark are unclear. Condition plays a major role in the value of a 1964 Jefferson nickel. While circulated examples are extremely common and usually worth only 5 cents, uncirculated coins can be worth significantly more. Coins that were never used and still retain their original mint luster are more desirable to collectors. High-grade examples can sell for several dollars, and exceptional coins can sell for more. Mint marks are also important. A 1964 Jefferson nickel can have no mint mark or a demint mark. Philadelphia issues have no mint mark, while Denver coins are marked with a D. While neither mint mark makes the coin rare, collectors sometimes prefer one over the other depending on condition and strike quality. Errors and varieties are another area where a 1964 nickel can become valuable. Off-center strikes, double dies, and other minting errors can greatly increase the value of a coin. These errors are uncommon, but they do exist, and they are one of the main reasons collectors check 1964 nickels carefully. It's also important to understand that value is not the same as composition. Just because a coin does not contain silver does not mean it cannot be valuable. Collectors value rarity, condition, and historical significance. The 1964 Jefferson Nickel is a perfect example of a coin that is historically interesting, but usually not valuable in average condition. So, if you find a 1964 Jefferson Nickel, what should you do? First, don't assume it's silver. Check the date and reverse to confirm it's not a wartime issue. Look at the condition and see whether it appears uncirculated. Check for errors or unusual features. These factors matter far more than age alone. The 1964 nickel represents a moment in U.S. history when the country was transitioning away from precious metals in everyday coinage. It also represents one of the biggest misconceptions in American coin collecting. Understanding this coin helps you avoid common mistakes and makes you a more informed collector. Most 1964 Jefferson nickels are only worth face value, but they are still worth understanding. Knowledge is what separates collectors from guessers. The more you know, the less likely you are to overlook something important or fall for misinformation. If you enjoy